I did a video on scraping acoustic ceiling texture off the ceiling, otherwise known as popcorn ceiling, oatmeal, whatever. But if you've done it, you know it's a big chore. A lot of people ask, how wet does it have to be? Well, I use an airless and I got it so wet the water is dripping. Now that acoustic is going to absorb all that moisture and become damp. It's not going to get beyond that too much because the layer of acoustic, and normally it's styrofoam pellets, are going to absorb a lot of that. So you're starting to scrape. Seems a little bit dry still, just add more water. That's the trick, to get it wet enough so it peels off. This particular job was the worst I've ever seen. And I've been doing it a long time. It's a double wide modular home. It's 1,700 square feet of nothing but acoustic ceiling texture. They sprayed it in the closets, the bathrooms, everywhere. Obviously it was easier for them to do that than do a good job of taping. Instead of running the sheetrock perpendicular across the trusses, they ran it with the trusses, which is commonly called railroading. That way they didn't have to finish any butt joints. But a lot of the trusses weren't exactly level. So in order to take up that unevenness, they sprayed multiple layers of the acoustic on there to fill it in instead of using mud. This created a lot of difficulty in getting it off. Irregardless, once you got it off, many people wonder, what do you do then? If you want to minimize the work that you're going to put into a new ceiling, then we're going to show you a way to do it that will cover a lot of mistakes, bad taping, bad butt joints, those kind of things, rather than, say, skim coating the entire ceiling, getting it look super smooth, and then doing a light texture or no texture at all. In this particular job, I chose to do a skip, kind of a combination skip trowel, hand brocade kind of method. It's going to be simple, but it's going to require a lot of work nevertheless. You're going to get a good shoulder workout with it. And again, this is 1,700 square feet of ceiling, so I didn't finish it in one day. This is my second day, which I hope to finish it. So I'm going to show you a few of the things you need and what the old ceiling looks like and what the new ceiling looks like dry, and then the application of that skip trowel, hand brocade type of texture. So let's look at the tools you'll need first. So you'll need a couple buckets, one for water and one for the mud. You'll need a mixer that you're going to attach to a drill. This is a 1/2-inch drill, has a good amount of torque, and you're going to be buying your mud in a box. You can also buy it in a bucket, but nevertheless you're going to have to mix it. And I usually thin it out with a couple cups of water till it gets kind of like that. It's not straight out of the box because that's kind of thick. I kind of want to get a swirly flat motion out of it. Then you're going to get a hawk, which is mostly a plaster tool, but drywallers use it also. Just a flat piece of aluminum with a handle. And then you're going to get a broad knife, a 6-inch, 5-inch will do, to get your mud out of the bucket. And then you can use a 12-inch to wipe it down, or if you have something bigger like this one, you can use that one too. But if you don't want to spend the money on something like that, you can buy a 12-inch anywhere at a hardware store. So again, I use topping on this because it already has a layer, many layers of mud on it, so the topping is going to adhere to that existing layer of mud very well. A bucket of mud that you'll mix, a box of mud, depending upon how big your ceiling is, will determine how many boxes you're going to need. A bucket of water to clean your stuff up, and a hawk and a knife. This particular job, as you can see, is a whole bunch of ceiling. And this is what they call railroading the rock. Instead of going across the trusses this way perpendicular, they ran it with the trusses, thus eliminating any butt joints, which is a good idea. And that's great. But you can see where they had sprayed acoustic and then filled in over the acoustic with a layer of mud. Now this part came off super easy once it's wet. This, however, took a lot more water and a lot more effort, and you can see there was places where it was gouged. That's not going to present a problem if you do this kind of hand texture. And let's go look at what it looks like. There is, that's too dark. There's what it looks after you put it on. And it's a nice flat, like kind of like clouds in the sky type of texture. Let's go in here and look at this one. That's better. And the great thing about this is if you find some damaged areas, you can just put a splot of mud on there and cover it up. Now when this is prime and painted, it's going to turn out really nice. And I'll start over here and show you how easily that covers this messy looking ceiling. Of course, in order to get to the ceiling, you're going to need either a ladder, a bench, or stilts. A pair of gloves too, if you don't get drywall all over your hands all the time, which does have a tendency to really dry your skin out. So we're going to just put a little bit on the ceiling to show you how it's done and what it looks like. So what you're going to do is just get some mud on this hawk. Now you can make your own hawk. I mean, you don't have to buy a hawk. You can just get a piece of plywood and use that as well. Anything that gets the mud up there. There's a thing called a broquet stomper, which we used to use, and it was basically a 4x4 sheet of heavy plastic, 6 mil or so, pulled into the center, and the corners pulled in to create a handle. And then that was used to stomp the mud on the ceiling. It was usually put on the hawk. But in order to eliminate several of those steps, you could just get a hawk. And again, you could make your own hawk out of a piece of plywood and screw a handle on there. So at this point, you're just simply going to take this and push it up on the ceiling and get some mud up on there. And let's go ahead and take a look how that's done. Really simple. So you've got your mud and you're climbing up there. We're just going to push a little on there. Let's go over here. And this is where it was gouged. We're just going to make sure we push some mud in there. Got to get close to this crown molding. As you can see, there's a little bit of shoulder work out to that. The cool thing is like, you see a bad spot, just put a bunch of mud there. That's going to save you so much. You're not going to have to come up here with a bunch of skim coating and a bunch of tape or fiberglass or whatever. It's just going to be so much easier to do it this way. You don't have to wait on it. You can do it right away. You can do a bunch of level of ceiling and then come back and catch it. I usually do a section. Here's my arm gets tired. I do a section, come back, wipe it down, do another section. And that way you can kind of rest between it. But at this point, you're going to take your 12-inch knife and just take it to the edge, and you're just going to pull it. You'll have some mud on your knife there. In order to get close to the crown molding, go ahead and take that and just push a little harder and then pull away. And that'll give you some mud right on the edge there, and it'll all look uniform. So you're just gonna put some good pressure on there, because you want kind of that clouds in the sky look. And then you're just gonna go over that. As you can see, it's covering up those gouges good. If you see some areas where those gouges still remain, just put a little mud on there, because it's definitely gonna look like a hand texture. And any time you get a hand texture from anyone, it's normally going to cost you a lot more if you had to pay to have it done. But you're going to do it yourself, and you're going to get a very unique look. It's going to look very hand done, which is always very custom. So at that point, you have that section done. And then if you find any places that you catch later that doesn't look right to you, all you gotta do is splot some mud in there and wipe it down. So let's take a look at it from the ceiling angle. It's going to take some labor, but hey, what doesn't on a DIY home remodeling project, right? That's a really simple, easy way to cover all that mess without getting too involved in a bunch of taping, a bunch of skim coating. You can do it yourself, very easy. So hopefully that answers those questions of what do I do with the ceiling afterwards? This is one way you can do it. There's other ways also, but I feel, in my opinion, after doing it many years, that this is the easiest way to get it done and have a really nice looking ceiling as well. DIY Duke. See you next time.